Welcome. We are happy that you have joined us today for our newly released DACA Thriving Tuesdays. A little bit of a mouthful, but we are glad that you're here. My name is Dr. Lisseth Rojas-Flores, and I'm a licensed psychologist and also an associate professor at the Fuller School of Psychology in Pasadena, California.
And I am Norma Ramirez. I am currently a PhD candidate in clinical psychology, also at Fuller's Graduate School of Psychology. And I'm working on my dissertation, and I'll be going on internship this fall. And I am also a DACA recipient and a plaintiff in the SCOTUS case. And I am also very happy to have you all join us here today.
Yes, and we're glad that you are joining us, and we want to give thanks to the Thrive Center, which is a research center at Fuller Theological Seminary, which is funded with a vision to promote and believe and send the message that all persons can thrive, can flourish, and become responsible and fulfilled citizens and adults. And so they have actually supported our efforts, Norma and my efforts to try to disseminate some of the lessons we have learned as clinicians, as persons who are involved, whether personally or through the research that I conduct with mixed-status families, because we know this is a time, uncertain time, and that we know that undocumented and documented folks have tremendous resilience, tremendous strengths, but also vulnerabilities, and especially during this uncertain time. So we're grateful for the Thrive Center for supporting our work. But I think, Norma, we need to share how in the world we came about doing this, right?
Yeah.
And how we got this brilliant idea.
Well, I mean, since I am a DACA recipient and I've been undocumented, most of my life since I've been in the US, well, I can't say that I always had it. I was always aware of mental health resources because I wasn't. But for a long time now, I have been, and it's part of why I came to Fuller to practice psychology therapy. And through time, I've been aware that we are in need of mental health resources. And this really was, this point was even more clearly made when we went to DC for the SCOTUS hearing about the DACA case.
This was back in November.
Back in November of 2019, so a couple months ago. I could see, through social media, through people that I knew who were going to be impacted by this decision, who were very anxious, very scared of what would come, through this decision. And so we decided to start working on something. And you can see it, I think, when you go to the website. You can see our video. We're in front of the Supreme Court. And you can very much tell that we did it right then and there.
You're right. We were there with you, and we realized that in the midst of all of this, people were continuing to strive to advocate for DACA, for undocumented and mixed status families. Looking back, it's interesting because we continue to hustle, to survive, to struggle, and while achieving great things in this time of uncertainty. I mean, we have now the layer of the pandemic that's exacerbating everything, but the uncertainty of what's ahead remains, and that was very clear for us then.
And so then we continued. We got a push because we were going to present this work at a conference, in a conference, but that ended up getting canceled. But we did the work anyway. We did extensive lit review on undocumented and
What do you mean by little review? Because we're the ones in academic sense, and we have to.
So we did the research. We read articles, the research on what it is to be undocumented in the U.S. with or without DACA, and really picked out the themes that were regarding mental health, both strengths and resiliency and vulnerabilities that we experience. We got feedback from other members of the community who are also affected. So big, huge thank you to them for giving us their time and their feedback. And
I just want to add that we did have several DACA folks throughout the nation that gave us fabulous feedback, and we're very grateful for that.
And we also recruited members of our lab, research lab, to also give us feedback and their clinical knowledge, as we also came up with these pieces of tips, mental health tips that we have here for you.
Yes, and so what we can see in the website is that we have for you a little guide, and what we came up with the idea is that we are all in this journey with not quite a clear roadmap. We all come from different backgrounds. Our identities are not defined by just being a DACA or undocumented person. In fact, we bring a number of different aspects into our journeys that are helpful, that are our strengths, that are things that we should treasure and nurture and support and make them grow even farther, but also vulnerabilities in terms of disability status, precarious legal status, migration histories, sexual orientation, you name it. There are a whole bunch of different aspects of who we are that we bring into this journey. And currently we are in this unknown territory without this clear roadmap. So we thought about giving you that visual, and here's our homemade guide with different highs and lows. Can you see that? Along the path. Again, we know that everybody's journey is different. Not every undocumented journey is the same, but we wanted to capture that for you. On the website, you have the front, and you also have the back of this resource. We wanted to develop it, to create it at home, put it together. Do you want to tell the story of how we wanted to do?
Well, originally, along with the conference that we were going to present at, these were going to be accordions that were going to be printed out and that you could take with you. However, with the pandemic, we had to use our own tips and really think creatively and come back with a solution for these new times. And so with that, I think you're going to demonstrate something for us.
So I feel like this is like a cooking video for you. I just wanted to show you that. Just download it, cut them, and then glue them together. If you glue them together front to back, then you could then fold them into an accordion. The idea is that these tips can be handy for you. They can go into your back pocket for your reference. We eventually are going to print this and make them available for you in nice paper, colorful paper, all folded up and all of that ready for you to have in hand. But here are the tips, and we're just going to ask you to do a little arts and crafts, right?
Yeah, and it's great because there's also research that shows that when you make it yourself, you tend to use it more and enjoy it more. And so
there he goes. There he goes. All right. So let's talk about what are these tips that we're talking about here. Do you want to listen, Norma, and help you out? Because we did choose, there are many tips that we can provide, but what are those? Perhaps
yeah, so the tips that we have for you, The first one that we're going to begin with is the one titled Pushing Against Unhelpful Thoughts, Caring for Your Physical Health, Engaging Your Community, Letting Go of Survivor's Guilt, Nurturing Your Creativity, Seeking and Maintaining Healthy Relationships, Dealing with Strong and Mixed Emotions, Embracing Your Faith and Spirituality, and last but not least, Moving Forward with a Vision for the Future.
So these steps actually are, they kind of overlap, right? They, it's a handful of tips that we hope can be readily accessible for you, and that you can use at different times to ground you when you're feeling very stressed, when you're feeling anxious, when you're feeling uncertain. To remind you about your worth and your resilience, but also to remind you to self-care, right?
Yeah. What we plan on doing with these Facebook Lives is that each week we're going to introduce, 2 new topics to go into it more in depth than what you have on the cards. So that way the accordion really is to function as a memory reminder, like it's supposed to trigger your memory of what we are talking about in these webinars.
Definitely. And in fact, every Tuesday, we will release more content, other resources, links to helpful websites and helpful apps that can support some of these things that we're bringing up to you so that you can go and look into them a little bit more. We are also going to be taking questions from you that we can follow up the following the following Tuesday. So we welcome any thoughts and comments or questions that you may have, and we hope that we will continue to be responding to those according to your needs. So be on the lookout. Our web page is going to be evolving as time goes by. We want to be relevant. We want to stay and be helpful in the here and now, especially as things with the Supreme Court are moving rapidly, and not so rapidly, right? Is this waiting game that is definitely draining all our energies. So with that, let's talk about unhelpful thoughts and during uncertain times. How do we push back against unhelpful thoughts in a way that allow us to calm ourselves? So what do you have to say, Norma?
Well, first I want to mention that I think that when we're in survival mode, I think it can be difficult to really identify what we're thinking, and along with that, what we're feeling and what's happening in our bodies. And so the unhelpful thoughts come in as a way to really open up this door into ourselves. And that's something that I had to learn. Even now, sometimes I think it's hard to really name what we're thinking. But throughout time in this work, I have developed that. And I think an example of what I guess of an helpful thought, I think that many of us face is the possibility of pursuing, higher education or even grad school. And I heard many times that it would be very hard for me to go to either undergrad or graduate school. And a way I think that I did that instinctively of combating these unhelpful thoughts was that I said, you know what, I'm just going to try it out. I'm going to do the best that I can, find whatever resources, whatever kind of help I can. And as long as I give it my best, then we'll see what happens. And that's a way that I was able to combat those unhelpful thoughts of like, you can't go to grad school or undergrad school. So
So you basically were pushing against your unhelpful thoughts with some reality, meaning acknowledging that it was going to be different because of your precarious legal status, right? That you got messages that were saying, no, you cannot do it. And yet at the same time, paying attention to your desire to grow, honoring that and saying, well, yeah, everybody's telling me I can't do it. There's a lot of barriers, but I know deep down that this is a call that I have. This is something I want to do. And expanding that thought, right? Not letting it so rigid and so paralyzing. That's what you're saying, right?
Yes, at a time where I didn't know I was doing that, which I think is important to highlight, that our community is constantly showing resilience and strength, even if we don't have a name for it.
That's right. Yes, and these things we're giving a name and label to it, but it's something that that our community, our immigrant community. You're totally right. With all the stresses of illegality and the anti-immigrant climate that we are have been experiences for a number of years already, are actually doing this. In a way to survive. And I think we have to be mindful, at times intentional, because they don't come so automatically, right? The automatic part of it, of the thoughts, it usually are the more negative aspect of it. And so we have to refrain and retrain ourselves to think more, to reframe, to change, to mold our thoughts, to include the positivity, the resilience that we all have. The idea is that to understand that thoughts are very connected and influence the way we feel and behave. So once you get a grip on those thoughts, and you can change and mold and massage them to infuse them with reality and positivity and some steps, helpful steps, will help you not only calm yourself down, but also get unstuck, right?
Yeah, and it's important to emphasize that we're not just talking about any kind of positivity. We're talking about a realistic sense of positivity. Like, we're not taking away how difficult times are, but we are also saying that there are spaces where we can act that will be beneficial to us.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, for instance, one example of an unhelpful thought that we can say to ourselves these days, and I have heard it quite a bit when I work with mixed status families where parents are undocumented and their kids are not, are citizens, and they're always feeling as if something bad is going to happen, that the world is not safe. So that's an unhelpful thought, right? The world is not safe. What am I going to do? My parents are going to get picked up and sent back to their original countries anytime. I think at those moments, it's important to take a deep breath and push against that unhelpful thought and said, well, yes, the world appears to be not safe at the moment, and we have plenty of reasons to not feel safe, but I can create a space that is safe for me, by having caring relationships, reaching out. That's something like what you were mentioning, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's something that we do by finding other, undocumented individuals who may be in a similar situation. Like, for me, something that has been very helpful recently, and I think because of that pandemic, since we're doing everything online, I've been able to connect with more undocumented graduate students who are in PhD programs or have finished PhD programs, and that to me is incredible, because it makes me feel like I'm with people, that I'm not alone, and it does good to me.
Good. No, I love that. And the other thing you were mentioning, and I'm thinking of your first comment, that the unhelpful thoughts that you had to battle once you were trying to decide to go to pursue graduate school. And this trips pretty much anybody, this idea that we're not good enough, right? Oh, I don't think I can make it. I'm not good enough. And I think for us, our immigrant community, and especially undocumented folks, to acknowledge that, yes, yes, society, others, whatever you want, you can name it with a very specific name, and they might say that you're not good enough, but you have to remind yourself, but yet I have overcome many difficulties, and yet I have come very far, and I can go even farther. So highlighting those personal strengths and creativity are very, very important. I think that's, sense an example of what you did to fight some of those paralyzing and unhelpful thoughts as you were trying to figure out going to grad school.
Yeah, and a combination of recognizing that these voices, these outside voices, are not dictating my worth, and part of that has been my faith and also my friends and community that that's where I bring my worth from. And so knowing that, I think, helps also to push back against these thoughts. Like it's a real thing. I can hold on to the fact that I know that my worth is inherent in me. And so therefore, trying to figure out all these obstacles, it's a matter of figuring out the outside, not the inside. I don't have to prove my worth, but how do I navigate the external world so that I can live the kind of life that I want to live, pursue the goals that I want to pursue, and have the kinds of relationships that I want to have.
Right. No, I hear you. And another thing that I think it's important for us to recognize is that, yes, undocumented folks are right now walking this unknown territory and waiting for the final verdict from the Supreme Court. So it's a difficult journey, one with a very uncertain outcome. And oftentimes I think we tend to think, oh, that things will not get better. I mean, if we lay over this journey, the challenges that we're all facing because of the pandemic, I think we all can say, hey man, these things are not getting better, and be completely overwhelmed and paralyzed by that unhelpful thought. Yeah. Wouldn't you say that, Norma?
Yeah, no, I mean, there's so many things that right now are very uncertain, and that I think the waiting doesn't help. The waiting just kind of amplifies what we're waiting for. And so I think now even more, we're just, as we have stay-at-home orders, really we are spending even more time with our thoughts, and even coping strategies that we had before that are more external, like we don't have access to them. And so that's why this is really important to know how to change our thoughts into something that will be helpful for us.
Right. So I think in this moment, I think if we say to ourselves, okay, yes, things feel like they will never get better, because I think that we need to remind ourselves they feel like that. And you're not in any way minimizing the reality of the difficulties that we experience. It's very, very deep down in our skin, but that we can prepare for the day that they will get better. Right. We can prepare by taking care of our health, our physical health. We can prepare by taking care of our relationships, reaching out to others, through Facebook, through Zoom, through whatever, staying connected. We can take care of ourselves and prepare ourselves for whatever outcome and for the moment, the current difficulties, by engaging our faith, our strength, our cultural strengths, our creativity. I mean, here we go. We are doing this homemade video for you, talking to you through Facebook with our little kitchen cooked kind of guide that we have to ask you to glue and put together at home. Those are ways that we are preparing ourselves for when the Supreme Court decides what are the next steps, and we are preparing ourselves to when we can go back to a semi-normal after the pandemic.
Yeah, and really an example, honestly, that I am confronted with during this time is that I have my work permit, right? We know that it's every 2 years, and currently, like, depending on whatever the Supreme Court decides, I'll have 1 more year basically with the work permit. And so what that means for me during this time is that I really have to prepare for what that's going to look like. So what is important for me in these first steps is to make sure that I fulfill my classes, that I do well, that I pass, that I work on my dissertation, that I prepare for internship, um, so that whatever may happen in the future, I will be at a better spot than if I had not done these things. And so I think taking that thought process of, like, in your context, in your situation, what are the best things that you can do right now for what you want in your future, that's what will help.
Yes, very good point. Thank you, Norma, for sharing that. And I think the other takeaway that we want to emphasize is that your thoughts are very connected to your bodily reactions. How, they might trigger stomach aches and headaches and all kinds of other things because our bodies are holistic, connected with our mind, our thoughts, and also how we feel, sad or angry or paralyzed. So that's an important reason why we're highlighting pushing against unhelpful thoughts, because as you do that, not only does it broaden up your perspective, but it also calms your body, calms and shifts your move in a way that gives you a little bit more energy to keep moving forward.
Yeah. And as you're talking, I think it's important to recognize that you might be feeling something right now throughout this whole conversation. So honestly, as I'm talking about my experience, I feel sad. So that's something to take into consideration. Like, if you feel sad talking about this, really listening to yourself, your body. And I think we could even end with some kind of breathing exercise to kind of calm down and go back to whatever you were doing in at home. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point, because you calm yourself through your thoughts, but also you calm yourself with very basic things that we all do, which is breathing. And breathing is, again, an automatic response. It's a sort of, it's we all do it without thinking, and at times we have to intentionally focus on our breathing to slow ourselves, to calm ourselves, to get more oxygen in our brain so we can think clearly, and have more options. So taking a deep breath, but taking a deep breath from your belly, right? Breathing like babies, not very shallow from up here, because what we'll do if we do that is hyperventilate ourselves. So it's calming your thoughts, but what you say, but also calming your body with your breathing, in allowing yourself to shift both in mind and spirit and in body. We're almost out of time, actually, and this is a teaser in a way, because we could talk about unhelpful thoughts for a longer than this. But what we want to remind you is that next week on Tuesday, we're going to continue talking about unhelpful thoughts and how they are connected as well with health, because mental health is connected with physical health, and physical health is connected with mental health. There is not one without the other. And so we're going to be continue to talk about mental health in terms of managing some of these unhelpful thoughts, but also managing your health, the physical health, with very, very specific things that you can do to help yourself along this journey. It's a long journey. You have to know how to take care of yourself to make last the long journey, all the way. So we hope to accompany Norma and I in this uncharted territory, and to share some things that we have found helpful personally, but also as we work with different folks that are in this journey, documented and undocumented, and families in misstatus backgrounds. So Norma, how are we going to close this?
So next week we will continue on June 2nd at 10 a.m. Pacific time. And again, we hope you can join us, and we're very happy that you are here.
Thank you again for joining us. Be sure to check our website for more tips. We'll be adding them every time we have one of these talks. We welcome your questions. We welcome your comments. We will elaborate on them next week as well. May you continue the journey and be strong and resilient, and embrace your resilience, embrace your strength, and embrace your vulnerability. It makes you a stronger person. And together, we will get there. So blessings to all of you. We'll see you next Tuesday.
Bye.
Bye.